Oh.
Good morning and welcome to the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency Finance Committee meeting for January 12th. We have a quorum of our committee as well. We have myself, Jim Cooper, Randy Netherland, Bill Peach, and then I'll chair the meeting today because our finance chair retired from City Council and moved on to being, actually it's kind of cool, Cynthia Pratt was appointed as the first ever poet laureate for the city of Lacey on her way out on her last night. It's really cool. She's been a longtime leader in the Olympia area poetry network, which is a great little artist group in our community. So it's a huge thing for her and it's pretty cool. So I just thought I'd pass that on since we've been working with her. And then at our February meeting regularly, it's our regular chance to where the chair will reappoint finance committee members and a finance committee chair. So I'll ask for volunteers today at the board meeting, and then I'll do those appointments next month. Let's see. Let's go ahead then. Is everyone okay with the agenda as we have it? Okay. Bill, is that good for you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the minutes from October 13th.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes from October 13th as presented.
This is Bill, a second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any amendments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to the financial report for the second quarter of 2022. So our second year of operating under unusual circumstances. Lynn, tell us how we're doing.
Yes, thank you, Jim Cooper. Good morning, all again. Nice to see y'all. So behind tab number F3, you will find the second quarter financial report for the period ending December 2021. So it is a good report, I'm happy to share. In summary, our revenue, we received 53% of our $2.7 million budget. On the expenditure side, we've expended about 45%. We should be about 50% halfway through the budget. A couple of the revenue lines I'd like to highlight are, under the assessment line, you'll see that we've not received any revenue. We typically mail out our invoices the first week of January, and we typically collect a revenue of $464,000 during the months of January and February. Those invoices go to all our municipalities in our 6-county region. For the ecology oversight, as y'all know, we billed directly from ecology for the oversight of our Title V program, a statewide program that ecology oversees. And that invoice was recently received for $12,500. Basically, it comes in from our major sources and it goes out to ecology to reimburse them for the oversight. We'll discuss that later, probably in the third quarter. Just kind of want to give you an idea why we have goose eggs in our revenue column. And, we're doing very well in our land clearing. There's still a lot of folks who want to burn out there. But on the same side of it, we incurred a pretty significant cost of about $3,000 that included a large mailing for outdoor burning. So yes, we're getting revenue in, but we're also trying to educate more folks and trying to encourage them alternative means. For our grants, as you well know, most of them are reimbursed on a quarterly basis. So we incur the cost first and then we get reimbursed. Those grants are our wood stove education, our wood smoke reduction, our ecology PM 2.5, our Chica Peak, and our core federal and state and our FSEC. I'm in the process now of remitting our second quarter reimbursement request. Most of them don't allow you to request any more frequent than quarterly and any less frequent than quarterly. However, with EPA, I actually send our reimbursement request on every 2 months. And again, we incur costs on all of these grants and then get it reimbursed. On the fines, you'll see we've received a large amount during the second quarter. We received a little over $100,000 from one store for multiple violations. Fran did cover this in our last board meeting. I'm sure that she will likely cover it again to help those who are here with us today to educate them on the reasoning behind that large dollar amount. It was $103,000 that came from Westport. For the building income, we are on target for our 9 rentals. We're receiving all of our income there. We've not received any notices of termination. We want to continue that. And it's actually been pretty slow here with our tenants and their clients. I mean, there's good and bad to that. But again, we've not received any termination notices, nor do I expect any in the near future. Near future meaning 3 months. So at this point, obviously, we're not using any of our general fund contingency. And I have done projections for the remaining part of our fiscal year. If we have enough time, we can cover that later. But that pretty much, in summary, is our revenue. Is there any questions on our line items for any of the revenue items? We're in good position right now. Hopefully we'll continue this trend. Again, we got a lot of anomalies that are working maybe with us, against us. I'm not sure yet, but let's just hope for the best, right? Fran, do you have anything you'd like to add on the revenue portion?
No, I'm pleased to see that, last year we had an incredible year for notice of construction, and part of it was because the building industry was going great guns during COVID, well, still during COVID, and upgrading their equipment. So we had a lot of new, but we're still, you can see that we're not where we were last year, but we're at 66% notice of construction. We should only be in theory at 50%. So our industry is still doing well. And some of the industries are coming back online. So for instance, McKinley was, a lot of entities shut down or were curtailed based upon COVID, and they're coming back. Westport Shipyard, as Lynn indicated, is the one that had multiple fines. We've been working with them. Part of it was they didn't, well, they had a number of things in terms of reporting they didn't do. Their emissions calculations were wrong. We've been working with them to try to correct that. We don't want to see that in the future. So, we indicated they had, and we negotiated. The fines actually would have been higher, but we negotiated it down, working with them. They had a change in staff during COVID also. So they had a person that was untrained, which made it even more difficult. So our staff have been going above and beyond to work with them to make sure that their staff know what needs to be done and have it done properly. We still have a couple of, one at least, another major fine out there that we will be, again, also, and that one is a Title V. We've been working with EPA on that. And so we'll be, I'll be bringing, I won't, Jeff will be bringing that to you in the future days, but I'm working to try to get that negotiated before I've gone, just because I'm so familiar with it. So again, the other thing is for funding, we had an EPA meeting, and I'll mention this to the full board too, but Christina Miller, who is wonderful, she's our grants person at EPA. They're still working under a CR, continuing resolution. We're not going to have any less money. We may have a little more money. I was hoping we'd have a significant amount more, but I don't know that Congress is going to be able to get it together to do that, because EPA was targeted to get some additional funding. But our core monies, at least on a federal level, are in good shape and will continue to be in good shape. So that's a good thing to think about. And I think that's about it in terms of, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on revenues.
Questions, Randy or Bill? Just remind me for the report, when I talk to the board, is the Title V AOP, that's ahead just because of the timing of of when those come in, or is that also an increase?
Correct. No, you're right, Jim. There is a timing element that is behind the invoices, and they're typically prepaid in advance. So we'll be collecting our final quarterly payment from our major sources by March. Some of the sources actually pay their full invoice upfront in August, September, though they
Okay.
can choose to pay them on a quarterly basis. But by March, we should have received the full allocation of the $601,075 from our major sources.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else on any other questions on revenue? Okay, let's go to expenditures.
Yeah, Fran had indicated Christina Miller, our contact at EPA. She's wonderful to work with. I so enjoy her. We did receive an email recently from Christina a little over a week ago that we did receive our final year of funding in our 4-year contract we have with EPA for Chesapeake. The funding runs from April 1 through March 30th. So we're going to be good through March 31, 2023 with Chesapeake before we have to apply for another 3-4 year grant opportunity. So again, it's working great with, EPA, Christina Miller, rah. Moving on to our expenditures, like I said, we are at 45% where we should be at 50. That's good news there. On the payroll portion, we're at about close to 50% of expenditures. And I have done a projection of, again, the remaining 6 months of the year where additional expenditures with the retirement of our executive director and the hiring of our new, there are some additional expenditures, as we all know. And at this point, because of the 10% exceedance rule that the board instituted on our expenditures, meaning we have 4 subcategories in our expenditures: our payroll, non-payroll, maintenance and operation of our building, and our non-operational expenses. The board instituted a requirement where I cannot exceed 10% of each subcategory without seeking board approval. Because our budget is really 85% payroll and benefits, it would be difficult to, and that's a good thing, to reach that 10%. So even with the additional expenditures of the retirement of our executive director and our new ED, we are under that 10% threshold. I'm sharing this with you because one of my items is to discuss, do we need to conduct a budget amendment? I'll introduce that later on after discussing expenditures, if that works for y'all.
Sounds
Great.
good.
So again, we're on target with our payroll expenditures. For our non-payroll, we're about 49%. There's 101% that is identified with our insurance. We pay our annual premium at the beginning of the fiscal year to Endurus that covers for our professional liability, errors and omissions by the board, our bonding for staff, and our vehicles. That's all done at the beginning of the year. So that will taper off, obviously. But I was pretty close. 35,520 was budgeted, and they billed us 35,872. So that was a good guesstimate. We're getting late notice from Endurus. Let's see, our wellness program. Yeah, we exceeded it by about $36. However, we also received some grant funds from AWC to cover our wellness, our additional wellness expenditures. So basically, we're actually underspent there. Like to see that. As wellness coordinator, I'm hoping to maybe see that increase a little bit over the next fiscal year. I'll have to talk to our new ED on that. Let's see. On public education, we did have a couple mailings that included the outdoor burning education component. And that's always a good expense to incur, education. And other than that, non-payroll, again, we're on target. For the maintenance and operations of our building, we're definitely under par there. And that has to do with the principal and interest payment schedule that was changed with Thurston County Treasurer's Office, who holds that promissory note. And the good news is we got really one payment, large payment left, December 2022, for the final payment of the, yeah, you dance. Go, Jim. Go, Jim. And let's see.
Then we can get new carpet. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, carpet. We don't want carpet. Hardwood. Hardwood.
There you go.
So, and we can talk about leasehold improvements later on too, possibly during our additional budget conversations and amendment. On the non-operational section where we generate our payments to our vendors under the wood smoke reduction, we've incurred $2,800 in expenditures due to the late signing of our contract with Ecology. However, we're really gearing up for additional expenditures under that program. This month alone, January, by the end of this week, I will have paid out almost $10,000. So in the last 2 weeks, it'll be $10,000 we've incurred in additional vendor payments for that program. Dan Nelson will be speaking to the full board on how he's planning on gearing up and pushing this program out there, working with more vendors. So that's happening, and monitoring. So other than that, we're definitely underspent in the programs there, but that doesn't mean we won't spend. So we still have 6 months of the year remaining for our operations of our air monitoring stations. So we're halfway through the year. We're almost halfway expensed, almost a little over halfway received revenue. It's a good picture. Happy to report that. Any questions on the expenditure or on the report in whole?
Questions on the expenditures?
We can move on to page 2, which is our fund balance, a snapshot of our checking account with Thurston County Treasurer. Thurston County Treasurer is our banker, and they receive all of our revenues. We started the beginning of the year, July 1, 2021, with $1,848,692. With the revenue we discussed, the expenditures incurred as of December 31, 2021, we're at $2,132,000. That represents two main items. We have our unrestricted and our restricted. The restricted funds that the board has allocated for the various funds, Title V, security deposit, office building, monitoring, database, vacation sick, that's almost $900,000 of restricted funds. The remaining 1.3 million is unrestricted. So it's a nice report. We definitely have money in the bank. We want to keep money in the bank, and we have the contingency funds that the board has identified by resolution. The only way to use those funds is to create another resolution to access the funds. The exception are the tenant security deposit in Title V. Tenant security deposit, if someone moves out, I have an obligation to pay them back if we don't use their security deposit, minus normal wear and tear, of course. And then the Title V, that's a program that has a running balance. There is no, it's a running balance that ORCAA has to access if we need to, in the event that we are overspending and we need to access it. The board will definitely be informed well before that happens. And if that happens, it's usually at year end. I just want to note that on the bottom under ORCAA long-term liabilities, you will see as of December 31, 2021, our principal and interest payment balance is $44,108. The Department of Retirement Systems, every municipality in the state that contributes to Department of Retirement System has this line. a liability, now an asset line, for the pension liability, because we're subsidizing PERS one. Everybody, there's 8 systems, retirement systems with DRS, Department of Retirement Systems. And ORCAA employees are represented under one, PERS. And on June 30th, 2020, we had a liability of $495,000 on our books that we would have had to pay DRS at that point in time if we needed to. Because the investment board has done so well with all of this money they're holding for us, Department of Retirement, our contributions, our premiums, they made money big time in calendar year 2021. It's a fiscal year 2021. It's amazing. We went from a liability of $495,000 to an asset of $1,116,490. What does that mean, really? Well, it's important to note that our investment committee with the state is doing a darn good job investing funds. But because we are so close to a benchmark, what I mean by that is 6 of the 8 retirement systems are making money, and they're in an asset position where if everyone retired, we'd be able to pay them all off. Whereas in a liability, we still owe our checking account money because we're overdrawn. So this year it's an asset instead of a liability, and that's all good news. But in future years, pension plans can flip back to a net pension liability, which is common for plans that are so close to 100% funded position. I'm probably saying more than you probably want to hear, but I think it's important that the board hear this. So it's a good position. Department of Retirement Systems is doing what we want them to do, make us money on our plans. So that pretty much
Can I ask a clarification about that real quick? Is
Yes,
just
sir.
that liability or asset is in our account at DRS versus in our account at Thurston County. Is that true?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's
For that. Good,
okay.
good question, Jim.
Good.
Thanks.
Okay. Good.
Here-
Anything on the reserves or contingency funds? Thank you, Randy. I got to give you the nod for having the language fixed last year.
Do you mind if I add something so that Jeff will have a little understanding on this one?
Go ahead.
So Jeff, when I first got on this board, I've served on a lot of boards over the years. Money is always the weakest part on a board that I sit on. I could never believe how government could be so loose with the money, not know where their money is, not have good ways of reporting it and showing the boards what it was like the last year, the year before, what they're going into. And when I first started this one, I thought that again was going to be what I found, but it was not. This, as you can tell, I kind of sit here looking bored as hell, but that's probably one of the great compliments I can give. She made some changes at my request at the very beginning, just so I could read it easier. But the more I was able to read it, the more I was able to understand that this is the one group that knows their money. They know where their money is. They know how much they need to move forward. They know what they needed for reserves for every little aspect of it. Also, when we've had discussions in the past about raising fees and raising costs, we didn't have to, because this particular finance aspect, this particular committee that I'm on, always knew where they were and what they actually needed and had to be. I wanted to tell you that because I want you to know that when I'm sitting here looking bored, that's not a bad thing. It's actually a compliment. It's just, this is the least of the board the finance committee, I have to do the least amount of work on it in the 10 years I've been a county commissioner and the 6 years on support commissioner. I just wanted to share that along.
Thank you.
You're
Randy.
great. Well, thanks. Yeah, it's really easy to follow. And yeah, I'm sure I'll be spending lots of, as I mentioned to Fran last week, I'll be spending lots of quality time with Lynn going forward, just because, I mean, I've got some questions about some of these things just to better understand exactly what's behind them. And but yeah, this all seems very clear, and certainly, yeah, it's essential to know where your money is, and to see us, the agency so well balanced in terms of being halfway through the year and having this all looks great. So
Yeah, we're really, to echo Randy, we're really lucky. We have a good staff team and we've had a good committee. You know, it gets like, especially me, like I'm Mr. Questions, and every month they get, every time we look at a report, they get less because we have a really strong understanding. And the other thing you'll see when we do the budget is we have a 5-year projection of this cash balance too, and we watch that. Probably for about the last 6 or so years, we've been watching that really closely to make sure, because for a while we were, coming out of the recession, we were worried we were going to just run out of money because we were planning for contingency. And I don't know if I told you this in the process, but this is my 10th year on the board. And I think all but 1 year we've budgeted around 200,000, give or take, from our contingency funds to operate the organization. And maybe we've touched a little bit once, like we really have not had to do it. And that's because of Fran and Lynn and the team and how good they are. So
Great.
we're really
Great.
lucky.
The other thing that I'm doing is Lynn and I are asking staff to do, this is early, but we're putting together a preliminary budget for fiscal year 2023. So I can, work with Jeff early on to help him understand, how we budget. Also, February is the month that I look for CPI, and I'm concerned about the CPI this year because of the rate of inflation. So that'll be an issue that I'm sure will be coming back to the board to look at, because we raise fees by CPI and we use the Western region, which is the population of 2.5 million or less. So, but February is the date that I always look year to date to figure out that number. So, and I'm also really pleased to say that when I got here in 2009, remember we had the horrible recession and we've never had to lay off any staff. We did, I think it was a couple of years we might not have provided a COLA, but we've never had to lay off staff, and I'm pretty proud of that. So, and we
did a salary survey, sort of after that, not being able to pay COLAs, and got caught up after the recession, and that'll be one thing on your plate next year is to do another one. So
I've already told him that. He knows
so
that.
I'm going to keep us moving because we have a board meeting in a half hour. Lynn, can I lead the witness and project that you want to talk about moving money from the vacation and leave reserve into the budget to fund Fran's departure and Jeff's onboarding?
Well, interesting that you bring that up. Yeah, one of the 3 items having to do with a budget amendment. As I indicated earlier, I have completed a projection through the rest of fiscal year 2022. So I have projections for January through June 2022 for revenue and expenditures. I have shared this with 2 people, 2 managers. I missed the managers meeting because I was out of the office. However, it will be circulated to the remaining staff for their review and more importantly, get their feel on the revenues coming in and expenditures. And based on my initial take, without doing a budget amendment, we're underspent by 7,500. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Especially one.
That's with contingency or without?
That's not using the contingency. And so now some of these lines are conservative, some of them are heavy on, so, will we spend out 120,000 of the wood smoke reduction program? My personal first approach is no. So I budgeted 104,000. And it is slower, but again, Dan Nelson will share with the full board his planning and what he's doing to try to, uptick that program. Considering the expenditures we're going to concur for Fran's departure and adding our director, and there's a little bit of overflow, in the month of February. And I need to get a final vacation accrual page after speaking with Fran to get more in alignment, especially after this past month of changes. But even considering the additional expenditures and payroll and a heavy reduction in our principal and interest because we made that early payment of principal and interest. I mean, that's a $42,000 savings there. And also depending on if we're going to move forward on some of our leasehold improvements that we budgeted, which is 30,000. So there's 70 we're talking there, plus another 20 with the wood smoke reduction. There's 90. I needed about 95,000 as a net difference, bringing on the new ED and paying Fran's accruals of vacation and sick. So we can discuss this further at another finance committee meeting when it's time. I think we will know if we need to do a budget amendment possibly in March. And if that works for you, great, because there's a couple things that are kind of come into play that I've also included. You know, the new paid family medical leave is almost doubled in terms of cost as of January 2022. Currently, ORCAA pays for the employee share, which is about $5,000 a year. That's going to increase to probably $8,000 a year. So that's something we want to look at. Do we want to continue that, or right now we pay $920 a quarter. It's going up to $1,700 a quarter. So it's almost doubling. And that's due to the increase. I mean, it's heavy. The state didn't realize it was going to be such a heavy utilized plan, and it's serving a lot of folks. Also, I received word this week, Thurston County Auditors is increasing our monthly charge considerably, 150%. Because Thurston County is moving at purchasing a new software program for their accounts payable and payroll. We can talk about that at a later date, but I kind of wanted to just give you a heads up, and I have included these increases in my projections for the 6 months remaining in this fiscal year.
They gave you notice of 150% increase 2 weeks after the beginning of the year when they wrote their budget in the fall.
Yes, and so I'm in contact with Thurston County to please work with me on this. This is
Wow.
We're in the middle of our year, so I don't know. I haven't had time to talk to Fran because I just got it yesterday, but I'm sorry. I would be coming to Fran first thing, but so I'm gonna work with them, and Fran's my ammunition. See, I do my part first, and I bring in the armor at the necessary. So
Where does that fall in the budget, Lynn? What line?
that is our accounting, and under non-payroll, you'll see auditing, accounting, right under dues and subscriptions.
Oh, the accounting part afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Says we're 41% expenditure right now for that line item.
Yeah, so we get billed about $550 a month, and that covers us for all the accounting services that Thurston County does for us. And really, I mean, what they do for us, they send our employees pay to their banks, and they generate our W-2s at the end of the year. Other than that, I do everything else. So, but you know, they're our bank. And
Are we required to use them for payroll service?
no, we're not required to. We could pull out, but I use them as kind of my backup.
You could use, I mean, it's like for $300 a year or $400 a year for QuickBooks payroll, unlimited employees.
Okay, well, you have to have someone who's actually generating the payroll too.
Oh, I know there's work, but
I do
it's
the
a lot.
IRS, the taxes, the department. Very few air agencies do their own payroll. They contract that out. That's
right, yeah, no, I get that. Okay.
Yeah, so what we can talk about that further at another finance committee, because I would like to, and that's another subject. Fran already talked about the CPI. I had that on my list, so she beat me to the gun there. But other than that, talking about our second quarter budget, we're in good position. So
Cool. Any other questions? Sorry, I kind of hogged it because my home county came up for a second.
that's okay. All right.
Okay, so I'll give a brief report on that, and Fran, Lynn, you can add more if you feel like you need to, either in your report or during the chair report.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to unfinished business around a commute trip reduction policy. And so we have a draft of the current policy and a revised option from staff And just as a reminder and for Jeff's benefit, it just came up in we were doing a personnel policy review, and this was the section underneath the part we were updating, and a conversation came up around commuter production and whether the world is still the same. We have free buses in our county, but maybe not if people live out of county, and we have historical staff who have been on the program for 25 or 30 years, and what's that disruption. So we asked staff to give us a recommendation. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Fran and have her tell us what her preference is, and kind of walk us through the two options here.
Thank you. So on the back, we'll start with what Lynn did all the work on this, and she did an investigation in terms of what other entities are doing. Commuter Production is required, I think, if you have 70 or 100 employees. So obviously we didn't have to do that. And we've been doing it, and I think it's a really good idea to do it for many, many years. It was in place before I got to ORCAA. Historically, we've used the current policy, which is you accrue vacation hours. If you use Commuter Production, a certain amount of days for the month, with a maximum of 2 hours per month. One of the other options that came up was, instead of you adding vacation days, that you could get an incentive pay for, again, Commuter Production of $30 a month. Historically, at least since I've been at ORCAA, there were 5 of us that were using the program. So there were 3 of us that lived in Pierce County, and we commuted together not every day, but many days. One person now lives in Thurston County, and with COVID, we're not obviously doing that. So 2 people are using it now. My sense is that they would like to, and I don't know anybody else that has indicated an interest in the program. My understanding is that they would like to continue with the Commuter Production incentive with vacation, as opposed to using the $30 a month financial piece. I'm fine with that. I think supporting Commuter Production is the way to go. We wanted to offer another option for the board to take a look at, which is a different option than vacation accrual. But based upon my conversations with staff, they would like to remain with vacation accrual, and I'm fine with that. So as a recommendation, again, you can look at what other entities are doing. Some are doing, bus passes, some are doing nothing. I think it's important to do something. I think it's an important perspective. And it can be people, I know that, Mark Gooden was trying to ride his bike or walk, and it was dangerous. He couldn't do that. So, people have tried to do different things over the years, but the more we can cut down on vehicles on the road, the better. And so if staff prefer having the vacation accrual, I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Yeah, this is Lynn. So this is a volunteer program that ORCAA has been administering since 2006. And we entertained the program as a pilot program, and we used a incentive of a conversion from what folks were being paid or reimbursed for car, bus, ferry, and equated that to obviously an hourly incentive. And to be more equitable also was part of the strategy behind revising the program, because with the hourly rate, there's definitely a variance from $40 an hour to $100 an hour per staff here. And so to be more equitable, that's why we went with the $30 flat monthly reimbursement. But keeping in mind, the majority of our jurisdictions have free bus service, so there is no bus fare. So my survey that I did distribute and share with the board in September is pretty much consistent and will stay the same until probably December of 2024, when I believe Intercity Transit, Thurston Regional Planning will be looking at continuing the pilot program where it's free bus service, Olympia, Lacey, Tumwater. I think it's great. I hope they continue it indefinitely, the free bus service. But I just wanted to add that the equity, it's more equitable, the $30 a month, but you bet board, it's up to you. And I appreciate Fran's input there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I think, for me, with a staff recommendation of hold the course and to me, disruption of employee benefits for no reason doesn't make a lot of sense. Though I would be inclined probably in the next few years to talk about this only being non-fossil fuel sources, of vehicles. But I think we need to get both our systems for personal vehicles and public transportation a little bit further along before we would do that. So, but definitely to me, a mission-oriented personnel policy, clean air is our mission. So, Randy or Bill, are you okay with staying that course?
I have the same belief.
Okay. Bill, is that good?
Same here.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay. So then for the board meeting today, I'll just recap this discussion and let folks know that we decided to stay the course. Okay. And if they'd like to do something different, that will be their will, at their will. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order on finance? Jeff, anything top of mind that you want to ask? If we got probably 5 minutes, if you want.
No, I don't think so. Like I mentioned earlier, there's just a few things, that's seeing some of the line items that I'm interested in talking with Fran, a little bit with Lynn about, but no. This has been good. This has been a good education for me. Again, a little more explanation. I've certainly reviewed the documents, the budget, but hearing a little bit more discussion about it has been helpful. And like I said, a lot more conversation to come, but no questions or comments at this point.
Perfect. Okay. Well, then I'll adjourn the finance committee meeting at this point, and we can stop the recording, and then we'll come back at 10 o'clock for the board meeting, take